This episode of The Panel is brought to you by Mainframe Comic Con, the first and still the best live streaming fan event. Visit mainframecomiccon.com for daily nerd news, celebrity fan events, and original shows designed for you, the fan. Mainframe Comic Con, your entertainment and news headquarters.
Hello, and welcome to The Panel, where we take a look at graphic novels and talk about their story, art, and everything in between. On this episode, in honor of Valentine's Day, we're taking a look at a story about love and all the complications that come along with it. Scott Pilgrim's Precious Little Life is an endearing, lighthearted, romantic tale that proves that love conquers all, even 7 deadly exes. So, get a haircut, ditch your 17-year-old girlfriend, and trek up to the great white north of Toronto, Canada, because today it's Scott Pilgrim versus The Panel. Hello, everyone. Here we are 2 days before Valentine's Day, getting ready for a new show. And joining me today from the Brotastic Nerdum podcast, we have Keith Blake.
Hi. Thanks for having me.
And writer of The Wicked Righteous, Disposable Legends, and the Nat One Network D&D show on mainframecomiccon.com. Please welcome Terry Mayo.
Hi.
Hey, guys. How's it going with you guys?
Good. How about yourself?
Doing all right. Got some snow here. I'm in Seattle, for those of you that don't know. So we just got some snow, and we don't really know what to do with it. we have a lot of hills here. It's really bad.
Well, I feel guilty. I'm over here wearing my sweater. I'm in San Diego. It's like 60 degrees, and I'm like, oh my gosh, it's so cold. But
Oh, I'm so jealous. What about you, Keith?
You're not missing much. Just the rain. Yeah.
Just the rain.
We had our snow day for the year.
Yeah, what was that? You guys had some not too long ago, right? Back in
Yeah, it was like
Virginia?
1 inch. That's it. It's like our regular yearly stuff.
Oh, that's not too bad. Not too bad. Well, today we're going to be talking about Scott Pilgrim, which I'm going to give you guys a little bit of information on. Scott Pilgrim was written and drawn by Canadian artist Brian Lee O'Malley. Brian started working as an illustrator and letterer for Oni Press back in the early 2000s before working on Scott Pilgrim in 2004. It was originally published in a digest-sized black and white book format, but after its success, it was re-released in full color and ultimately received a film adaptation in 2010 and a video game release. And since then, he's been writing for Snot Girl and has created variant cover art for titles like The Wicked and the Divine, Kaiju Max, and Young Avengers. Fun fact, he's also a writer and musician who creates under the name Kupek with 7 albums out already. So that's pretty interesting to find out he was in a band.
Yeah. I mean, it makes sense, though.
perfect sense. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, no, it definitely does. I wonder if he actually did some of the songs in his band that he had in the comic.
I mean, some of the lyrics would make sense in the comic.
All right.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I was reading somewhere that like a lot of the songs that he had in the comic book, he actually translated over into, or they translated over into the movie. I mean, not word for word, but especially like that first song. But no, I've heard some of his music before, and it's really interesting. It matches the movie perfectly.
Is it really?
Yeah, it really does.
Awesome. So before we get into the deep dive on the plot and the artwork, let me get a quick take from you guys. What did you think of Scott Pilgrim? Remember, we're just talking about Precious Little Life today, so let me know what you guys think. Let's start with you, Terry.
I mean, for me, I kind of did it backwards. So I saw the movie and then like went and gathered all the books and ate them all up. But for me, I think Brian and I are kind of in that same like demographic, that age demographic. And from the moment of like the Smashing Pumpkins T-shirt, and I think the first line of the book is even like what is like a Scott Pilgrim is dating a high schooler, and just that period in adulthood or almost adulthood that just drew me in. So I was hook, line, and sinker from page 1 with Scott Pilgrim. Always have been.
What about you, Keith?
So there's a lot of 90s grunge references, like Terry said, that I really appreciated. I'm an 80s baby, but like I'm a huge grunge music and metal fan. So there's that takeaway, but there's also like a mix between that generation and kind of like the hipsterish now generation, where he was able to combine both, and it just worked.
Nice. All right. Now let's go ahead and deep dive into the story by going deep between the panels. All right, so starting off, thinking just about the story, what did you guys think about the story in general? Remember, we're just up to the first evil ex-boyfriend, so it's this whole introduction, which is great, though. But what did you think, Keith?
So when this came out, it was around my early 20s. So I related a little bit too much. So it was just kind of like having, it was almost like reading yourself on a page in the worst ways possible. So I, as far as like, you know, life minus the band thing, but just like adolescence itself, I related in the sense that, you know, I've gone through some of those same things that Scott went through, the ridiculousness of unfortunately juggling girls and stuff like that. I'm a grown man now and I've learned, but you know, back then we all had our knives, chows, and Ramona flowers at the same time. So that struggle I understood, even though it was like, you know, in a bad sense.
What about you, Terry?
Yeah, no, I mean the story itself, it's hard not to like see yourself in Scott Pilgrim, at least for, I know, my generation. And I've got adult kids now, and we grew up watching the movie, reading the books, and it's crazy how they can put themselves in that situation as well, and kind of pull from that as well. I mean, because we've all got our Wallaces, like the voice of reason, and our knives, you know, like that holding on to our adolescence. And that Ramona, that unknown factor that you're reaching out to transition into adulthood. So I know that we're just talking about the first volume, but that introduction and the character development, I mean, that's what pulls you in. That's what keeps you reading all the way through. How many volumes are there? 6, 7, 8?
6.
Yeah, 6. So yeah. So that's, like I said, it's a perfect coming of age story.
Now here's kind of a controversial question, because I've found recently, well, over the years, that Scott Pilgrim is kind of a controversial character. Do you guys consider him to be a hero or more of an anti-hero?
Do you want to go first, Terry?
That means Keith doesn't have an answer, but
Oh, I do. I just,
do you?
oh, he's definitely an anti-hero. Scott is nowhere near a hero.
Yeah, he is not what you would strive to be. I think against all his better judgment, he becomes kind of that almost. If somebody wanted to call him a hero, they could pull from that. But yeah, no, like he said, he's definitely an anti-hero. He's I don't know what the rating of this show is, but he's not a nice guy.
He's definitely got kind of a creep factor to him, you know, as you read it. Which is funny, because I feel like when you look at it from a younger perspective, you kind of don't see that as much. You just see like this kid that's in love, and I feel like as I've gotten older, I'm like, that's kind of cringy. Like he like ordered a package to have it sent to his house so that she'll deliver it. Like that's creepy.
Yeah.
You see the toxic side.
Yeah, this very easily could have been a horror comic. All it would have taken was just a couple twists.
Now, are you teams Knives or team Ramona?
Oh, that's hard.
Just off this first book.
Off the first book, I would say that I'm team Ramona, because I think I did latch on, and it is hard to go back and erase the rest of the book from your mind. But I think if I was just judging it on that first volume, I am team Ramona, because the way that I gravitated toward the story, which was Ramona represents that stepping stone into adulthood. And if you're rooting for a hero or an anti-hero, you kind of want them to grow and to prove themselves. And I see Ramona being that.
I feel like after recently rereading volume 1, when I was younger, it was definitely Ramona. But after rereading it recently, I think I'm more of a Knives Chow, just because of the loyalty and the non-complicated, issues. So,
Yeah, she was so devoted. That poor girl sat through so many band practices. So many. And she was treated so bad. I felt so bad for her.
It was a toxic relationship. I mean, and she says it in the book that she's a Scottaholic. I mean, it was not a healthy relationship. So
Mm-mm.
What do you think is the strongest part of the story? Like the thing that really drives people into making Scott Pilgrim such a cult classic?
I mean, I for me, and the people that I've talked to about this book, because it is like it's in my top. So when I got the invite to come on the show, I fought people off so I could do this, but because I love this book, and for me, it's the character development, and the amount of detail that goes into just the hangout factor, like the kickback factor when they're in the apartment or wherever the mall, and that development and getting to know each and every side character. That's what brings me in and gets me invested.
For me, it's definitely the supporting cast and the dialogue throughout the comic itself. Like it's easy, it's digestible, and then the cast itself. Like Wallace is one of my favorite characters. He's just the like what Terry said earlier. He's the conscience of Scott Pilgrim, but he's like the petty. God, what's not flamboyant, but he's just like he's what he doesn't listen to Scott. He's got that Jiminy Cricket vibe, but in a sassy way.
In a sassy
And a
Jiminy
fashion,
Cricket.
very fashionable. Wallace is up there for me too. He's one of my favorites as well.
Yeah. He really is that voice of reason that Scott really does need. Now it's now I know we're not supposed to go into too many of the other volumes, but if you have read ahead, without giving too much away, do you have a favorite X before we move on?
So I do, but it's partially because of the movie and the comic. So, and I can't remember his name right now. Chris Evans played him in the movie.
Oh, the
Lucas,
vegan guy.
Yeah. I love,
Lucas Lee. He played
yes, thank you. I love Lucas Lee. And
That was
Chris
a great
Evans played
role.
him like wonderfully.
He did. Yeah.
That was so good.
Yeah, no, it's a toss up between Lucas and Todd, the bass player from Envy Adams band. But yeah, no, I mean, I won't get into it, but yeah, no spoilers.
All right. One last thing. Do you have like favorite scene from volume 1? Like a favorite moment?
For me, blends, but I will go to this one because I know this one for sure is in volume 1, and it's the big fight between Scott and Matthew Patel. Because it matches the movie almost beat for beat. I mean, there's a few things that are left out, like the friends don't join in the movie, but but that right there, and then the lyrics matching point by point. That for me was like, as a fan, this was a perfect moment that translated over perfectly to film as well.
For me, I think it's the cringy scenes with Wallace, Knives, and Scott. Like every scene that they're in together, like especially the first one where he's picking her up from school, essentially, where Wallace is like, "You too good for him." Like those scenes are just the best. Just because there's like Scott's there, obviously it's in the back of his mind and it's lingering that he's not a good person, but Wallace is the only one that like lets it out, and Knives is so innocent she doesn't get it.
Yeah. Oh, poor girl. All right. Now, we did have a question from the audience, actually. We have one from Troy. Do you think the cringe factor is supposed to be funny? I think it is. Scott isn't a good guy, and the supporting characters are all critical of him. Makes it feel like he's the village idiot. What do you guys think?
For the time frame that it came out, I'm not sure. I mean, it just depends on when Brian O'Malley wrote this character. So from when he wrote it, maybe it wasn't cringe, but it became that way. And I think the movie definitely helped escalate the cringe.
Yeah, I mean, I do think that Brian kind of pulls a little bit of the cringe for like a comedic factor. And if you read, like, what was the other book, Lost at Sea, where it's more like a college, that late teens instead of early 20s type time period. he uses that in there as well, and I do think it is for comedic timing or comedic, almost like the guy said, like a village idiot type of thing.
He's set up to be the anti-hero.
Yeah.
All right, well, let's go ahead and move on to discussing some of the art. All right, let's move on into the art of Scott Pilgrim. Let's go ahead and do kind of a brief. What did you guys think? What do you think, Keith? How do you feel about the art of Scott Pilgrim?
I love how simplistic it is, and it's just something like, other than the dialogue, because I know we'll get there later, but the comic overall, it's just easy to comprehend visually, and as you're reading it, it just all works together, and it's, I don't know, like even the colored and the black and white, both versions I love. Like that, the X-Men jacket, like everything, just, or the patch, like everything, to me it was just simple. I like it.
What about you, Terry?
Yeah, no, I mean, it's hard not to agree with that. I mean, it is got that simple style, and you can tell that Brian pulled in that manga influence, that the Japanese influence, to kind of support it through that. But at the same time, like in the fight scenes or when there's more dynamic stuff going on, just the detail around it kind of slips in, and you almost forget the beauty of the simplicity when all that detail comes through. So it's, I love it. I love the black and white. I mean, the one that I have the color one, but I've read the black and white. I dig them both.
Yeah, I think there's something dynamic with each of the pages, right? In each of the scenes, there's always so much action, even if um, it's not an action-filled part. The lines of it still kind of give it kind of this life and vibrancy. Like there's just something about the line work in the background that just makes it kind of come to life.
Mhm.
I just always love that about every single panel that you find in there. And then, so one of the things that I really like about it is, and in comparing it to the movie, is how, like, in the scene with Wallace is, or in the room where they're showing up all the stuff that like Wallace had bought. I watched the movie first, so I did not know that was actually in the book until I read I read that, and I was like, whoa, they really did a good job of translating that into the movie. And it's something really kind of creative, like a creative way to show kind of their environment. So it was something that I enjoyed. What did you guys think about the movie translation from, the comic?
I feel like adaptation wise, Scott Pilgrim's left out of the conversation way too often. As far as like a straight, direct carbon copy of its comic, like minus a couple of scene changes in dialogue, it's almost completely accurate. It's never in the conversation. It's always a Watchmen or some other ones or 300, but you never hear Scott Pilgrim mentioned, and that's a tragedy.
Absolute tragedy. Absolute tragedy. I think that I got into the movie because I'm a big Edgar Wright fan, and Shaun of the Dead is like one of my all-time favorites. So it seemed like just a perfect marriage, like the stars aligned for this movie to be done the way it was done. And and I don't think it would have been done by anybody but Edgar Wright the way it was done. Um, the translations are good. I think that the dialogue that was used, a lot of it was pulled straight from the book. Even if it was put in like a different scene, it was still pulled from the book. But yeah, no, I was ashamed that it didn't do as good in the theaters, but the fact that it's had like a cult following since then it just shows what kind of movie it is and how good it is.
Now, do you have a particular moment in the book that was kind of your favorite art-wise? Like, was there a moment or a panel that stuck out to you? I know you had kind of mentioned the fight with the fight scene with Patel, but was there another moment that stuck out?
Mm. I mean, the first time that gosh, I hope this is in volume one. Yeah, it's got to be when he's leading up to the actual dream sequence of transitioning from the feelings with knife or non-feelings with knives, and then that first image of Ramona Flowers kind of skating through. That one, the beauty of it, it struck me, and it's something that I always turn to and kind of reference because I do dig into the dialogue a lot, especially when I start reading. I read things that influence me, and this book definitely influenced me.
I'm not going to say for me too. I was going to use the other dream sequence where they're stuck in the snow and they're going to Ramona's house, but they have to go through that door. That's not really a dream sequence; it's the hyperspace. So that's visually that's one of my favorite um, comic book panels.
Yeah.
That's a great moment.
Yeah.
Now, for those of you that have read the black and white versus the color, is there one that you prefer over the other?
I think I like color more, but black and white is just as digestible.
Yeah, I'm little known fact, I'm a little colorblind, so so some of the colors kind of fade, like blend into me for me. So I do like the black and white, but just probably for that reason. But yeah, no, I mean they're both equally good.
All right. So now that we've discussed the art a little bit, now, oh wait, Keith, I know that you had mentioned something about wanting to talk about the dialogue. Is there something that you wanted to add in about the dialogue before we get to our final thoughts?
I was just going to say that the dialogue itself was, other than being, easily digestible, it's just relatable, especially for the time frame that it came out, and the way they translated it over into the movie. It was like it was perfect. It's almost like dialogue from a sitcom, but like a good sitcom. It's not like cheesy. There are some cringe scenes in there, but it's like they all make sense to make the story flow.
It really does seem like you're just kind of reading about your best friends back
Hmm.
in like right
Mhm.
after college, when you're still kind of like lost and don't know what the heck you're doing. And
Yeah, yeah. No, I mean it's witty. I mean it captures that generation, that timestamp of young adulthood perfectly, and a big reason of that is because of the dialogue. Huge reason. Yeah.
all right, we have some more comments, I believe, actually. So from Steve, black and white, never read the color one. Now, see, I think the color one, you get the Ramona's like eccentricity, I think, a little bit more.
Hmm.
And then Steve says colorblind too because I can see some colors.
Hey,
David says enjoy the movie Scott Pilgrim vs. the World and would love to see another one. Me too. I think I would love to. Let's see. Scott saw Scott Pilgrim in theaters, was awesome. Then I've got the comics and really loved it. Played the game and got myself the soundtrack and the Blu-ray. It worked for me.
Steve, you and I need to hang out.
I actually just got the collector's edition from I think Limited Games for Scott Pilgrim, and it comes with a vinyl. It comes with like the set of the concert set. That's such a great game too. If you haven't played it,
Tell us about the game because I haven't played it.
it's a beat 'em up, like old school, like I'm trying to think of other games like Double Dragon, like that style gameplay, where you have like I think you can have up to 4 players, and you're all just side scrolling, going through each X throughout the town. You collect money, you can buy power ups. It's such a good game.
Oh, that sounds like fun. And apparently, Renegade Game Studios came out with a board game too. Scott Pilgrim's Precious Little Board Game. So
Mhm.
there's also a board game. There's like Scott Pilgrim everything, I think. But that's awesome. All right, so let's start going into some of our final thoughts. All right, final thoughts. Give us your summary of what you thought altogether of Scott Pilgrim's Precious Little Life. What do you think, Terry?
I mean, I don't know if we're using a rating system, but definitely 5 stars for me at least. Yeah, no, I mean, I think it's if I was leading an English class, this would be on one of my this would be part of my curriculum. Just that coming of age story, that transition from adolescence to adulthood. This is where it starts, and I think it's a great snapshot.
And Keith?
Yeah, it's simple, digestible, something you definitely want on your bookshelf. It's in 2 words: colorful and grunge.
Ooh, those are some good words. I definitely, as someone who only watched the movie at first, and this is my first time reading the comic, I definitely want to get the rest of the volumes because I want to see the other X's, and I'm just really honestly amazed at how well they did with transcribing the movie or the comic into a movie. Like really well done, and I didn't know how well done it was at the time. So it's kind of like a retrograde, like, wow.
And that soundtrack for the movie is amazing.
Oh yeah, yeah,
Oh.
yeah.
See, do you know what some of the songs are from the soundtrack? Because I haven't.
Oh, there's one cover. I can't remember the band on the soundtrack, but they covered an old R&B. I'm gonna butcher her name. Sade. I think that's her name. But they covered that, and it's like an alternative version. And it's like one of my favorite songs in the soundtrack.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I've still got that. And again, I'm not the greatest with the band names. I apologize. I know Beck helped with the soundtrack, like the movie soundtrack, but that's not the song I was talking about. The song when Envy Adams comes out and it's like the oh yeah, that song that's still on my playlist. I'll still rock that today in my car. I'll probably rock it after we end this, but it's a great soundtrack.
Inspired, very inspired. And speaking of inspired, has this inspired you guys to read any other books, or are there any ones that you would recommend other people who like Scott Pilgrim to try out? Terry?
Oh gosh. I don't want to shamelessly plug mine, so I won't. But
No, do it. Go for
no.
it.
But if you haven't checked out Brian O'Malley's Lost at Sea, it's I wouldn't say it's like a prequel, but it's definitely like in the same genre, same universe. Check that one out. Check it out because it's a must read if you're into Scott Pilgrim.
And I'm also going to mention a Brian O'Malley comic, Seconds. If you haven't read that, it's not the same storyline or adolescence, but it's got that same hyperspace and magical feel to it.
Very cool. I'm going to go straight different and go manga and talk about Fooly Cooly, which I think anyone who kind of likes that idea of like this normal guy meeting like a crazy chick and having all sorts of adventures, it's kind of that along the same lines. So definitely give that a try. So now here is your reminder to pick up Scott Pilgrim's Precious Little Life at your local comic shop using comicshoplocator.com to find the closest one nearest you. I want to give out a big shout out to our sponsor, Mainframe Comic Con, which brings the virtual comic convention floor to your home. Visit mainframecomiccon.com for daily nerd news, celebrity fan events, and original shows designed for you, the fan. So let's do some quick plugs before we head out of here. Keith, do you have anything coming up that you'd like to mention, or where can people find you online?
Lately, because conventions don't exist anymore live, we've migrated to Twitch. So we are on twitch.tv brotastic_nerddom every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday.
All right. What about you, Terry? What have you got going on?
I mean, you can always find any of my back catalog stuff, Amazon, Barnes and Noble, that kind of stuff. Wicked Righteous, Disposable Legends, and I got a few short stories out there. But right now, I'm not like the conventions are not in my future immediately. So we're on YouTube and Twitch, Mainframe Comic Con, and then we're also Nat1 Network does a live D&D campaign. We do it every Monday at 7 on YouTube. Just mainframecomiccon.com.
Nice. Well, thank you guys for joining us. And we definitely love hearing from you in the audience. So if you have a graphic novel that you'd like for us to talk about on an upcoming episode, leave a comment below and your choice could be picked. And make sure to follow us on all of our social media and subscribe to our YouTube channel so you don't miss any upcoming episodes or videos on comics and collectibles like Previews World Weekly, Talking Toys, or What's at Comic Shops. And last but not least, thanks for watching. And remember, heroes are a dime a dozen, but comic fans are priceless. And we'll see you guys here next time. What graphic novel would you like to see us talk about on the panel? Let us know in the comments and your submission could be picked for a future episode.
Can I give you a high five real quick? I just want to kind of let's do a virtual high five.
Wait,
here.
hold on.
I know it's backwards.
Mirrors. Ready? I feel weird with that. In any event, I had written a script for a Mallrats sequel a couple years. God,
Well, actually, it's funny because actually, training for this scene was more something about the shooting, only because it was just one of those things where what could go wrong did go wrong.
but in any event, I tried to write a Mallrats sequel years ago called Mallrats 2: Die Hard in a Mall.